Hello and welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm Dr. Audrey Tang, my co-host is Judith Crosier, and we take a deep dive into all things mental health and well-being. Today's first guest is an absolute inspiration. The topic we're going to be covering is holistic health, but her story with how she found it and how she got there is incredible. In her own words, she says she was homeless, pregnant and addicted to drugs and alcohol at the age of 29. Please welcome Jennifer Mckenzie to the show. Hello. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know we are going to get to the holistic health, but please, if you don't mind, telling us where it all started.
So, my story is filled with trauma, triumph, transformation, and lots and lots of challenges. And I kind of call myself the warrior woman because I felt like my whole life has been a battle and a fight. So I was bullied in school, and I had to fight to kind of be seen and heard. I was a very outgoing child, and my mother encouraged my individuality, and my mum's very holistic, but, you know, that's where my roots come from. And then when I got out into the big wide world, it wasn't safe to be myself. And I got bullied, and I felt like there was something wrong with me. And at the age of 13, I discovered drugs and alcohol. And
wow.
Yes, and
very young.
Because in social situations, it became my superpower. And you'll find out why in a little while. Because and I went through my life thinking that there was something wrong with me, that I was broken, that nobody liked me, and I went from being this very confident person who wanted to actually be a presenter of Top of the Pops. So I used to practice that in my bedroom, you know. Yeah, and it's like I've come full circle, really, and sort of where I am now. And I first tried to take my life at 15, through it with an overdose. Yes, and I really, really struggled with me internally. So outwardly, maybe to friends and family, that I kind of had it together. I was pretty. I was confident outwardly, but inwardly, I had this turmoil of and a very busy mind of and intrusive thoughts like this dialogue of you're not good enough. Nobody likes you. Everyone's laughing at you, and that's what I really struggled with. But alongside this, I was a high achiever, right? So you've got this duality throughout my whole life of doing amazing things. So at 18 years old, I was a landlady of 2 pubs. I had my name above the door, I had my licensee certificate and everything. Like,
amazing.
You've got that outwardly, high achieving and doing great things. And I found that I was really good at that, and I could entertain, I could hold space like that. Yeah. But no one ever knew what was going on internally for me. And at 19, I was pregnant, and I had my first child at 20. Wow. And then my second daughter at 23, and the relationship I was in broke down. And I really hit the bottle then. Like, I was a single parent of 2 young girls. I transitioned into working into corporate sales. I was selling homes, new homes, and it was hard, and I was lonely. And I went to work all day. I picked the kids up from the childminder, took them home, spent time with them, put them to bed, and then I drank 1 to 3 bottles of wine a night.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. And then I would go to sleep. I would go on the internet. It was MySpace back then. You're searching for this connection, right?
Yes.
Because I just felt totally alone. I felt alone as a parent. I felt I was a young, ambitious woman in a man's world, trying to climb that ladder and trying to get it and getting paid less as well. We could go off on so many different things here. And there is so much intertwined into my story. And what happened was that lifestyle wasn't sustainable. The wheels of my life slowly started to come off, and I started to drink more. I actually lost my job. I crashed my car. And then I had another job, and I was sort of in the party lifestyle. So I was hostessing. I was working then as a model, and wanted to try and progress my media career. So I was doing a little bit of filming here and there in London and things like that. And then I got a job like hostessing at a London club. I got into this more cocaine party lifestyle, cocaine, champagne and chaos. But my mental health behind closed doors was really starting to crumble.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And it wasn't sustainable.
No.
It at all. And all of that stuff that I'd been through, there's so much more of it, like in childhood and things like that, and the bullying and this, and I was actually sexually assaulted by another child when I was like 9, and all this stuff I just pushed it all down, pushed it aside, just got up, just carried on. That must carry on. I've got to be strong. And it became like I was kind of like, oh my God, my life has actually started to fall apart.
And you were still so young at this point.
Yeah, you know, I was in my late 20s and...
It's a lot to deal with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it was too much. But I was the strong one. Yeah. I was there for everybody else. You know, my friends would come round and be like, oh, this has happened. And I'm like, it's all right, I got you. You know, but no one had me because I wasn't telling anybody. I wasn't telling anyone how I was really feeling, or maybe I didn't know how to ask for support. Maybe I thought that I thought I would be less of a person if I did reach out.
What I'm hearing actually, because you talk about that loneliness and that emptiness, is somebody who never really found her own identity right from very young. You were talking about suppressing everything, and then it was almost those little reaching out, being the person that supports everyone and holds a space for other people, that gave you a pseudo-identity, and that's when you think it's all okay, but it's absolutely not, and no one actually knows the real you, but you haven't had the time to find the real you either. I mean, that's absolutely heartbreaking. What was it that then just made you kind of make the changes that you had to make? How did we get to there?
So all of those versions I created, you know, the party girl, the bad girl, you know, because I was in and out of juvenile court and all this stuff, like, you know, there's so many things that I can tell you, but like I'm going to try and put it in a nutshell really for today. And if you think all of that is like a pressure cooker, so it bubbles up and bubbles up. For any human being, you know, to go through things like that and not get the support and not get the help that they need. It took me, I then became homeless. So I lost my job, I lost my car, and then I was just taking drugs and drinking every day, and I wasn't paying my bills or my rent, so I lost my home, and I had to stay with my mum at 29 years old. My kids, my girls went to live with their dad because I wasn't, you know, really capable of looking after myself, let alone being a present and healthy mother for them. So they went, and that made me worse. Like, and I just like blocked that out. Then I just literally blocked everything out. I went into oblivion, and I found then my mum couldn't cope with that either. So she didn't want me to live with her, and I was homeless. All my stuff was in storage. Like I was sofa surfing. Some days I would go out and just kind of get with someone just so I had somewhere to go. Like, so all of that stuff, and you're just adding. And I was in a derelict building, smoking crack off a Coke can, and with people with no heating, like people I didn't know, and I was like, what has my life come to? How did I get here? You know, how did I get here? Why am I not getting in sport? Why is no one helping me? Like, and then it just added to that feeling of complete, no one cares. Like, I am on my own. And then I found out I was pregnant.
Because that's what you need as well.
Yeah.
As if you didn't have enough to think about.
With my third child. And I was like, right, come on, Jen. This sentence isn't about me anymore. This is about another life inside of me. And my family, who are really barely talking to me, encouraged me to have an abortion. And I said no. And I fought my way to get into temporary accommodation. They didn't want to house me because they said of my addictions I was intentionally homeless. And so again, another fight. So I went above their heads and I knuckled down. I'm an intelligent woman, and I wrote a letter. And I went above their heads to management, and after I threw a chair across the office, of course, and just add that in there. And I was like, no, I'm not having this. I'm going to fight now for me and my unborn child. And I did, and I got into temporary accommodation. I had my child in temporary accommodation, bathed her in the sink sometimes. I had a mattress on the floor, and I started again. And that rock bottom became my first step to turning my life around. And I had my other daughters come to stay, and we all slept on this mattress on the floor. And we got by, you know, and we got by. And I started to then rebuild the relationship with myself. And I started to then rebuild the relationship with the people around me. And then I got a permanent house, which I'm in now, and I've been there 11 years, and I've made it from a kind of not a very nice place to a beautiful home where it's the longest I've ever been in one place.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the longest I've ever been in one place. And I did have a blip, and I actually did in 2015 try to take my life again. So after I've had 4 kids at this point, and like I took a real downward turn, and I'd been through some more domestic violence and things, and abuse, like narcissistic abuse, but verbal, like the stuff that gets in your head, and then that got onto those really early limited beliefs about I'm not good enough. And I felt, you know, one of the things that he said to me was like, your oldest they can see who you are, but these two are too young and too dumb to know yet. And I walked out, and I tried to take my life, because I felt I can't. What else can I do? I've exhausted all avenues, and in that hospital I got sectioned for a while. And in that hospital, I had this huge awakening that something shifted. The way I describe it is I felt a jolt in my body, and I dropped down to my knees, and I broke open, and I sobbed like I'd never, ever sobbed before. It makes me emotional, that moment, though. And it was like, and I looked in the mirror, and I was like, I don't recognise myself. Who am I? I didn't recognise myself, and I said in the mirror, I promise I won't give up again. And I'm obviously here for a reason. I survived, you know. I've survived 3 times attempts. So I need to accept that I'm here.
You're not going anywhere.
Right? What is my purpose? And I found a purpose. I came out of that hospital and I started a business. With £3.50 in my bank, and I used my holistic knowledge that I'd had, and my qualifications as Reiki and reflexology and things like that. We come back to the duality of this life, you know, doing well and having this internal stuff. So, and I was like, I'm going to start a business. So I had an old massage bed in the cupboard, set it up in my lounge, put something out. I'm doing Who Wants a Massage?
Brilliant.
Right? So, and it started to build, right? It started to build, and I started to build, and I started to gain confidence, and I started to understand what trauma was. And that no one had told me in all of those years, no one, no health professional, no doctor, no psychiatrist had mentioned the word trauma. And I started to heal, and I started to unravel, and in my practice, people started to open up to me, and I started to open up a little bit to them, and it became this beautiful exchange of me too. And I see you, I feel you, I hear you, and it's grown, and I was like, I want to do something bigger with this. So I started life coaching, and I started to learn about NLP, and then I started to learn about the brain and the body connection. It's like, and then I've just obsessed now with learning and helping others. So
Jennifer is staying with us. She is a holistic therapist. She is also, I'm thrilled to say, going to be one of our resident experts. But there's just two things before we just go to break here. And that is one thing when it comes to domestic violence. I know a lot of women do say they do try to take their own lives, but there is something where now courts are beginning to understand that it can be what they're being put through that is causing that, and so there is this manslaughter possibility that's being entertained now. So that's just worth remembering because someone has set you up. So that's your only option. But the second thing that I love about you, Jen, is that you are honest and you're authentic and you're raw about these things. And whilst you have that drive and that fight, I don't get that sense of the anger anymore. No. It's different. It's a very different channeling, and that's absolutely beautiful.
So I have released a lot of rage. Right, I have, so I'm a somatic therapist, and I work holistically. So somatic means we work with the body, we work with discharging trauma and emotions from the body. So the emotional root of your pain and illness. And after I came out of hospital, I actually got very ill, and I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which I personally don't identify with that now. I feel it was my nervous system just going, and my body just filling with, it was full of cortisol inflammation. So I have released a lot of rage.
We'll get to that right after this.
Hi, it's Mark from Life Stories with Mark Hoberman. My show airs on E360 TV Fresh Takes Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. EST. You can also see my other show, Lighting the Educational Flame, which also airs on E360 TV Fresh Takes Monday nights at 9 p.m. EST. Can't wait to see you there.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters. We have our inspirational guest with us, Jennifer Mckenzie. She's told us all the things she's been through, but that has brought her to starting Lunar Spirit Wellbeing, which is all about holistic health and, in particular, helping clients get back in touch with who they are and their bodies, because I think that's so key in your story and your experiences, that so often we shut that whole bit out, and that's where it all goes wrong. So please tell me a little bit about what you practice and how you support your clients.
So many of us are disconnected. Yes. From ourselves, from each other, and from nature. So Lunar Spirit Wellbeing, I set up, which was originally called the Healing Shed, actually, in 2016, and I started off as, I've been 22 years in the holistic wellness industry, alongside my story, and it's been a journey like that of dipping in and out of it. But so I work with energy, so I work energetically, I work subconsciously, with the subconscious mind, and then also like the unconscious, the things that we can't see and make sense of, and also then with the body. So that's where the somatics comes in, and the embodiment practices. So if you think of, if you were to come to Lunar Spirit Wellbeing, you generally, the people that come through my door have been through some sort of abuse, that have been through trauma, they have been or are experiencing a big life change, and they're kind of like, I don't know what to do with this, and they feel pretty disconnected with themselves and questioning who they are. And that's what I help people to do, is working with the 3 pillars of connection, working with the first pillar is connection to self, through self-discovery, and that is like embodiment practices as well. Like, it's called Who the F Are You? Is the first, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who the F am I?
We need to ask that question a bit more
so
often.
That's the first sort of module, or the foundations of what we do. And how do you want your life to feel?
Yeah.
And people say, how do you want your life to feel? I'm like, oh yeah, we're all about getting up in our feelings about everything. How does that feel in your body? How does that feel to you? How does that feel when you've been through that situation? Instead of think, and working with the conscious mind, we're working with all that stuff that's going on behind the scenes. And then we're bringing that into the conscious awareness, and that's where you're going to get the healing. So the second pillar of connection is connection to others. So we do a lot of group work. So that's healing with the conscious collective. Let's work, so say like partner work, or we sit in circle and we heal. So loads of group retreats, workshops for self-discovery. And I work with the moon, hence Lunar Spirit Wellbeing. I love to work with the moon. So then that brings me on to the third pillar of connection, which is connection to nature. Nature is so healing, and just like being outside barefoot. We do meditation outside. We go up into the woods and we scream. Hence rage release we talked a little about earlier. And then working with the moon and the seasons, but your own inner seasons as well. So there's so many layers to all of us. We're not one thing. And this is what I really want to like bring into the work that I do, is that we can be all of these things. We're multifaceted human beings, and we can wear different hats and different roles and explore all those fun parts of ourselves. So I really bring a fun element into what I do. I'm not your typical life coach, I started saying, because I discovered I was neurodiverse, at 40. So all of those things that I talked about in my personal journey made sense. So I don't like the word diagnosed. I discovered I was ADHD, autistic, and slightly dyslexic. So I'm like, suddenly everything made sense. And I found that a lot of the people that come to me are either undiagnosed, neurodiverse, have just started exploring that, or have definitely got like that awareness of themselves.
I wanted to ask you about that, because you mentioned masking, and this is something I do want to talk about, because we don't talk about it enough, actually. A lot of neurodiverse people mask, and what we mean by masking is putting across what you expect from us. And the way you do that is by you look around at other people, you try and imitate them, then you think, I got away with it, and it's exhausting. And that, I think, is also part of why you don't feel authentic, why you're not able to express who you are. And so could you tell us a little bit more about, I guess, the ways you've seen people masking and how you help them?
So you imagine you're going to work. You've got a work version of you, right?
Yes.
And when I worked in corporate, I found when I got home, it's probably why I drank. Because I didn't fit in to the corporate world. I struggled to be in those structures. And you're expected to be this certain type of person, like professionalised. And I write spoken word, so there's a part of one of my spoken words that talks all about unmasking. It's once you do it, it's really freeing. But so the ways that we mask in relationships because we're scared of being seen. We mask in our working life because we're told we need to act and be a certain way. I love it now that more and more workplaces are recognising that, and they're employing more neurodiverse people, or they're having spaces where neurodiverse people can be themselves, so they can work their magic in the way that they can work their magic, not in the company policy, if you know what I mean. Right? Because employing a neurodiverse person is actually really going to like benefit your company. If you just let them do it their way, if you try and make them do it your way, they're not going to they're not going to perform
No.
at all or be beneficial. They're just going to be like, I hate work, and they're not going to turn up. So in masking in relationships is what I found I was often going into dating people that I thought I should be dating.
That's really interesting. That's
yeah. and actually, I like really weird, awkward, quirky people. And then I found I was dating very macho, tattooed, egotistical men, which is really not me. And I don't like them. And then I just want to break down some of those structures and now like bring in healthy masculinity. But more recently, as I've unmasked in the dating world, it's, you know, and I'm not straight, by the way. I identify as a queer woman, so I don't want to put a pin in who I am sexually and like my sexual orientation, because I like that again to be fluid.
Yeah.
Like, and I like to feel fluid. So one day I might like that type of person, another day I might like that type of person.
But it's honest.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly,
Yeah.
being yourself.
Yeah.
That's the point, isn't
So
it?
I've dated, you know, men, women, all sorts of different men and women, and I like that variety. But I've found the more I've got to know myself and unmask, I'm like, oh yeah, that has changed. Like who I'm more drawn to has totally changed.
That's incredible, and I know we could talk with you all day.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you very briefly. Tell me a little bit about that 5-element awakening method, because this is again getting in touch with who we really are beneath the mask.
Yes. So I've kind of changed that to the inner awakening.
Yeah.
Because I thought 5-element method sounds very
Restricting, isn't it?
scientific.
Yeah, it does.
Which I love science. Like, totally geek out on science. So that is a method, a modality of healing that I've put together with all of my years' experience of working with people, actual bodies and brains, and I've tried and tested it and tweaked it and see what works and what doesn't. And it's a beautiful layered method of healing that incorporates the mind, the subconscious, the body, the nervous system, the polyvagal theory. It incorporates all these things and brings them together to take that individual, or can do it in groups or do a whole retreat day of it as well. It takes them on a journey of self inward, and what it is it really helps to take off some of those layers of those masks, and it helps us to get in touch with who we really are at our core, and then begin to step forward confidently and unapologetically outside, you know, into our relationships, into our workplaces, and into our businesses. And that's where I see that changing a person's energy field. You can see it on somebody's face. You can see it in the way that they hold and carry themselves. And that to me is absolutely priceless. And I would do it till the cows come home, all day long.
I love this. Actually, that's inspired something I'm going to be talking about in Business Boost as well. Stay with us, because Jen is going to give us one of her exercises as she becomes one of our resident experts. Thank you so much for joining us, and over to Business Boost. In Business Boost today, I wanted to talk about something that's been inspired by our guest Jennifer Mckenzie, and this is about we need to think about what our body is saying to us in the workplace. I have talked about posture before, but let's take it back a little bit and think about what happens when you get scared. When you get scared, you tend to bring your shoulders in, you hunch down, you try to make yourself as small as possible. What happens when you're sitting at your computer desk? If you're tired, you hunch down, you're looking down, you're making your body as small as possible. What unconscious connection are you therefore making with the work that you're doing? So really think about posture. Think about what your body is saying to you and how that can actually then affect you when it comes to your performance. And then just very, very quickly, one thing I did want to talk about today is self-compassionate touch. And the reason I do want to talk about this is because business is one of those areas where you can't go around touching other people, at least not without some kind of lawsuit. So on those moments, for those moments when you get really stressed, try a few of these. This is from Dr. Kristen Neff, who talks about self-compassion. And the first is, I really like this one, is just simply cupping your face with your hands like this. And that really makes me feel a lot better. Just some people prefer one hand, and that's okay. Another thing is to hold your hands in your stomach. That can be quite a nice one, especially if you're having to stand and present, because again, you can keep your posture and shoulders back, but you've just got that comfort there. And you can also try tapping, and that might be tapping down your arms, it might be tapping your chest as well. Now, they may not work for everybody, but if you're in that stressful situation, stressful moment on the phone, whatever it might be, just being able to reassure yourself can make a big difference.
Do you find yourself feeling stressed and anxious and running on autopilot? In this exercise, I want to bring you back into your body and back into the present moment. Okay, so do this exercise when you are safe. So don't do this while you're driving, please. And maybe you're at home, you can do it on the train, you can do it as a passenger. So when you're in a safe place. Okay, so firstly, I want you to close down your eyes and begin to connect to your breath, okay? Breathing in and out through the nose. So you have your mouth closed. Just breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. So closing down your eyes brings you into yourself, brings you into a sense of safety. Connecting to the breath brings you back into your body. Breathing in and out through the nose starts to ground you. So take the breath a bit deeper into the belly. Put one hand on your heart space and one hand on your tummy. And really, maybe you feel like you want to rub that area or tap. Bringing yourself into your body, into the present moment, whilst connecting to your breath. What this does is help to reset your nervous system. It helps to bring you mindfully into your own body and into the present moment. So in those times where you feel the tension rising, the stress rising, you feel yourself then becoming anxious, you can stop, pause, and do this exercise. So close down your eyes, connect to the breath, close the mouth, breathing in and out the nose, touching the body. Do that until you feel the shift in your nervous system, and you'll know what I mean when you do that.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters. We have been talking about holistic wellness today, and our next guest is Emma Kendrick of Lowell Theatre in Kettering in Northamptonshire. Now, I have had the pleasure of chatting with Emma before, and she's fabulous. She writes, directs, performs, does the whole lot. But I'm going to start from something our previous guest said. She didn't survive in the corporate world, and just in the break you were saying same thing. What happened? How did you get to...
Not for me at all. Yeah, it's an odd journey. Again, I have undiagnosed ADHD, but it's very clear to anyone who meets me for more than 5 minutes that that is an absolute certainty. I might get it diagnosed at some point because it could help me along the way. But there's definite, it's there. And so, yeah, I've tried various jobs. I mean, I've had ridiculous amounts of jobs. I'm only 40, and like my CV is like I've 3 people or something. It's very weird. But just to find sort of my place, where I belonged, where I felt I could be myself and do something that was sort of worthwhile. Everyone's always searching for their place, I think. And I just really struggled to find mine. So it really resonated with me, what Jennifer was saying. Because I'm going, me too, you know. And it's kind of what you're talking about, that connection with people. We are as human beings, you know, we need connection in our lives. That's essentially what it is to be humans, to have that connection, and we're always searching for it, no matter who we are. We could be the most confident person, we could be not very confident. Everyone is searching for that, and I think that's so important.
I agree, and then this is where I think a lot of your theatre and the expertise that you bring there has not only helped you find that in yourself, but you've drawn it out of so many people, especially those who have neurodiversities.
Absolutely, yeah. I obviously, because I recognise it in myself, I recognise it in, especially we do a lot of theatre for young people. Because my mother calls me Peter Pan, so you know that's basically in a nutshell. I will never grow up, but I think I'm just blessed with that ability to still understand what it's like to be a child. And so many people grow up and they kind of forget. They forget what it's like. Just things like, you know, a small child being able to express, well, they haven't got that vocabulary yet. They haven't got the ability to speak like you or I. Haven't learned it. They haven't got there yet, okay?
True.
So we can't, why are we expecting this small child to say what they've done? Well, they can't, because they don't know how to tell you. And it's all a bit of infuriating. I want to sit the adults down and go, right, this show might be for children, but actually it's really for you. Trying to teach you how to talk to your own children. And that's kind of essentially where it all comes from, is that ability I'm able to recognise and kind of connect with these children, not in a weird way, I must point out, but I'm coming across on TV here as some very strange person. But no, I understand
exactly
where they're coming
mean,
from,
yeah.
and that they need a voice too. And I think that's really important to give them that platform to be able to express, you know, through the means that they can express.
Because this is one of the biggest problems that we notice in a lot of clients is they haven't had that form of voice, and then when they find their voice, it's all wrong, so you're not allowed to use that voice. And so I think what you do is fabulous. Do you mind telling me a little bit about some of the productions and the theatre and education that you do, which really helps with that?
So first of all, we are a community theatre company, so we're not for profit. We're not trying to make, you know, millions, and we don't. But I'm very lucky to be able to do what I do, and basically, in a nutshell, we do theatre in essence, not in a way people might think. That sounds very cryptic, but I think when people hear the word theatre, they automatically think of the building.
Yes.
You know, the auditorium, the stage, the curtains, and you have to sit there and act a certain way. As Jennifer was saying earlier, you have to be a certain person. You're expected to act a certain way in the theatre.
Yes.
You have to sit there, you have to watch, you have to listen, and you are not allowed to make a sound, and you are not allowed, you know, and there's rules about it. Yeah. And I think that's inherently wrong, because theatre is essentially, in essence, storytelling. That's where it came from. Yeah. People sitting around a campfire telling stories, whether that's to inform, to educate, to entertain. So many different uses of theatre. And theatre isn't just restricted to it's this building and you go and you see a show. Theatre can be as simple as somebody performing on the street. Busking is a form of theatre, for example. Street performance, you can go to South Bank, see some fabulous things, you know, along the South Bank. It's great. You know, they can be in a park, it can be in a shopping centre, a church. There can be performances anywhere, and it's still theatre. And the essence of it is expression, a shared experience, a ability to inform or discuss something. It might be political, it might be purely entertainment, it might be really silly, it might be comedy. So the sort of things we do is we allow, mainly for, as I said, kids' theatre, we try to have this really interactive element to it, so that people can come along and don't have those restrictions of you are expected to sit still and what have you. We're quite open to the fact that there's probably going to be a 3-year-old who will pop behind stage at some point, and rather than us react in a "you shouldn't be here, rabbits in a headlight," we're kind of like, have a little look. This is all still part of the show. This is what makes the show.
Yes.
So we obviously create shows in a way that it doesn't matter if we have a 3-year-old popping behind the curtain, because they are still learning something. Oh, that's what they're doing. And then they go back out and they tell their mum, she's putting a wolf ears on, and she was Goldilocks a second ago, and you know, it's all very exciting. But it creates that world of they're able to explore, rather than you have to sit there and be a certain way. It's kind of much more about their learning and understanding and expression than it is about we expect you to sit there and just listen, because the attention of children is, you know, it can everyone's individual, and so some people will have the attention span to be able to sit there for 45 minutes no problem. what a little angel, how lovely. And that's how people describe it as well.
Yes.
We're trying to break down those. Just because a child is running around and looking like a chaotic mess does not mean that they are not getting exactly the same amount. In fact, possibly even more understanding from it than that child who is sat there through the whole thing, you know, in the way that we expect them to behave.
That's almost
It's very different.
That's the essence of growing up, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it is about reclaiming that, because the minute a child gets to school, and they get to school, 4 years, 5 years old, sit down, do everything,
terrifying.
you're already getting the rules. And so I guess you must have situations where in your productions, do you get parents? And I guess this reveals a lot about them. Oh, I'm so sorry. Don't do that. Do you get?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Almost like the parents, you see them trying to sort of impress on their child how they're supposed to be, and not allowing the child to kind of explore the world how they need to explore it.
Because they feel awkward
That
and
this is
embarrassed.
how it should be. And so you're almost passing down through your own, you're sort of mirroring that.
You're passing down the mask, aren't you?
Absolutely. And passing down the mask.
Gosh.
That's a really interesting way of seeing it, but absolutely you are. It's like a child isn't inherently born with a fear of spiders. They learn that. Who are they learning it off? The people that they copy. That's what happens. If you are like, if you're scared of spiders but you try and show that you're not, more often than not your child will then end up not with the same fears or the sort of things as you will, because you're not passing it on. So it's about being sort of conscious about actually how you're coming across to them. It's psychology is fascinating, as you know. It's the whole thing, and it's very tied in with what we do with theatre. It's a huge part of it.
And with that as well, and psychology always talks about the safe space to create and safe space to express. You need to maintain that safe space, which also includes physical health and safety, one of the really legal parts.
We have to do like the boring paperwork side, but it's still integral to it to ensure that everyone is safe.
Yes.
Performers are safe, the audience is safe. Every aspect has to be. We can't just allow chaos to ensue. We have to have some kind of boundaries and things that are in place to allow it to be
But once you've got that, then you've got the space to
then we have
just
freedom.
be creative.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes, then we have the freedom. But it's very important. Yeah, I mean, we always ensure that we take the health and safety obviously quite seriously.
I mean, almost you can be teaching organisations this: create a safe space and then let people work within that.
Yes.
And
that's all you need to do.
And off you go, kind of thing. Now, another thing that we've been talking about today is the power of movement, gesture, posture, how it can build confidence, how it can change how we feel even. Yes. And this is, again, fundamental to developing character, to exploring different aspects of you. So how does theatre make those differences for us as well as people that we can take into our everyday lives when it comes to confidence?
I mean, we could do a whole day on this.
Oh, yeah.
As well. It is fascinating. I mean, it all comes down to, and this is I've always found this fact really fascinating. There's a formula, you might have heard of it, 55-38-7 formula. Okay.
No, I haven't.
So I believe, and I might have his name wrong. No, the name's gone. There was a guy. I'd love to credit him. He's come up with this formula. Yeah. Basically, he was the first person to compartmentalise what it means to have face-to-face communication. So 55% is body language of communication. So it's non-verbal. Yeah. What you're doing, gestures, mime, how you are. Yes, you were talking about sort of being punched up, and you can tell without saying any words, you know exactly how that person is feeling. So 55% of your communication is through non-verbal means. 38% is vocal, so your intonations, how you're coming across it. You can tell if someone's a bit agitated because there's then there's oh, no, I can't explain it. And you can tell without them saying the words, I am agitated. It's clear that they're agitated. So only 7% of your communication is actually through the words that you're saying. And I've always found this really fascinating because obviously this breaks all sorts of barriers down that people think, well, I can't understand them. That's the end. Actually, not true. You can have conversations. You can have full on, expression without actually needing to know the words, because it's only 7% of the whole communication. So when you think about that in terms of a theatre context, the world is your oyster, really, and that's why we don't sort of shy away if we have people that don't speak the same languages that want to come and see our show. We're like, absolutely, there will still be something in there for you. I mean, even if I did something as simple as this.
I can't get that out of my head
now.
now.
Your head now, right? I haven't said any words, but you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And it's that really that we try and bring forward. So it's that connection, it's that shared experience. So people can come and feel connected to it because we're presenting something that they're going to already have some kind of understanding of. And then it makes you feel confident. I know this, we're doing a show at the moment, it's all about the classic fairy tales. Little Red Riding Hood, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Three Little Pigs, and all these kids are like, oh, I know what's gonna happen, and they can feel really proud of the fact that they know this, they have this knowledge, and it makes them feel connected.
Yes.
They no longer feel like, I can't put my hand because I don't know the answer to this question. You don't have those anxieties, it takes it all away. It's a safe space of expression, and them allowing them to be creative. And you get the best rewards are always the ones where the parents say, "Well, they're very, very shy, they won't do this," and then they're the ones that are right out there going, "There's a wolf!" There you go. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Really allows kids to be as creative as possible and have that freedom of expression where they might not necessarily get that in, say, a school structure, for example. I mean, you look at me now and you think, oh, she must have been, at school, one of these, I don't know, popular kids, very noisy, very loud. I was the one that was sat in the middle, minding my own business. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be heard. I definitely didn't want to make eye contact with the teacher because they might ask me a question, and what if I didn't know the answer? And you can feel the anxiety coming. That was me at school. And it's very interesting to see, don't judge those kids of how they are there because they could blossom, they could become their full potential if they're allowed to. That's the importance of it.
Absolutely key. When we talk about holistic health, it starts right from the structures and the narratives we as adults are putting on, and they may be very different to the ones that we've learned ourselves. We need to make those changes. Emma, I'm going to spring this onto you because we're going to go into a break now. I would love it if you would stay on and just teach us a breathing exercise.
Of course I will.
Thank you very much. We'll be right back with Emma.
This is a really simple breathing exercise. It's going to sound quite strange, but some people don't actually know how to breathe properly, even though you've been doing it your whole life. So I want you to imagine a balloon. When you inflate the balloon, it expands. So that's what you should be doing when you take a really deep breath. Your whole body, your chest and your stomach area should expand like a balloon. And then when you breathe out, it shrinks. All the air goes out of your body. So simply put your hands sort of around your stomach area there so you can feel it. And just take a nice deep breath in and out. If you put your fingers so they're together, when you breathe in, you should feel that your fingers just slightly part. There you go. It's as simple as that. Do a few deep breaths every morning before you start your work day, and you'll be solid.
Our shows have just been so fascinating. I mean, the amount of knowledge our guests have it's just phenomenal.
It is. I could listen to them for hours.
Yeah.
I just want to get them all back and just have an all day.
Pick their brains the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay, key tips. What have we taken from today? I mean, I've taken a lot of breathing exercises, and
yes.
Emma's right. I don't know how to breathe, and especially when I get nervous, I just breathe very shallowly, and that's awful.
It's easy to do that, isn't it? Just do the shallow breathing.
But then, as Jennifer was also adding, to put the hand is very comforting. So I think there's a lot of things that we can take away from today. That's probably my key thing I got.
Yeah, definitely. I think my key thing is over, all the guests that we've heard and spoken to, is just go for it and find the right channels to do it, but just kind of be yourself and find that space that feels right for you to be who you are, and for that space to encourage the development of you.
Yes, that's important to remember, and that's probably the thing to finish on. It's not just about us having to be authentic and dig deep and find out who we are, but we need to have spaces that allow for that to happen. Yes, okay, worry about health and safety, all of those things really important, but if you create that area where people can be themselves, then you never know what amazing things are going to come out of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll find that space with Mental Health Matters. If you've got any topics you'd like us to discuss, we know a wealth of incredible experts. Thank you for tuning in. Stay healthy.